So, today we're going to talk about how to get your ex back if your breakup was mutual. And if you stick around until the very end of this video, not only am I going to talk to you about what a mutual breakup is, but also how rare it is and why you probably really don't have one. But first things first, if you're struggling on figuring out whether or not you should even be trying to get your ex back, my best recommendation for you is to hop over to our website, www.exboyfriendrecovery.com, and take our Ex Recovery Chances quiz. It's a simple 2-minute quiz designed to tell you what kind of chance you have of getting your ex back, so you know you're not going to be wasting your time throughout this entire process, because believe it or not, this entire process does take a while. So again, if you're interested in taking that quiz, it's free, only will take you 2 minutes to complete. Just simply look in the description link below this YouTube video and click on it. It's that simple. Okay, so let's get started and talk about what mutual breakups really are. A mutual breakup is a breakup where both parties decide to go their separate ways and they agree on it. We actually see this from celebrities all the time. They'll get their PR person to draft something about the breakup and about how the couple amicably went their separate ways to live their better lives, but really the truth is a little different. So before I say what I want to say, I do want to say that I think mutual breakups can exist. I'm not saying that they're like the boogeyman and they don't really exist. I believe they do. It's just in 90% of the situations, I don't think a couple has a mutual breakup when they actually say they have a mutual breakup. And to prove this point, I ran a really interesting poll on our private Facebook group. So literally 18 minutes ago, before I actually started filming this video, I wanted to get an idea of what the spread was of breakups in our private Facebook group. Who broke up with who? Did you break up with your ex? Did they break up with you? Or was your breakup mutual? And within that 18 minutes, we got 64 responses. Unfortunately, only 3 of the responses were from people who said that they had a mutual breakup. And while I agree 18 minutes isn't really a lot to gain the whole perspective of all 3,500 members in the private Facebook group, I kind of think it's enough to illustrate my point, because that was only 18 minutes and there's like a 95% spread saying this was not a mutual breakup. Here's my point. Mutual breakups can exist, but they are extremely rare. It's highly unlikely that you are having one. And so it brings me great pain to destroy your perception of mutual breakups, because you've been told the great lie of mutual breakups. So when it comes to breakups, here's what everyone kind of knows but is too afraid to say. At its core, a breakup is simply someone admitting that they think they can do better than you. It's highly unlikely for both parties to come to that same conclusion at the same exact time. In other words, by nature, a breakup is kind of selfish. You're in it for you. You think you can find someone who better meets your needs. And to further illustrate this point, I'm going to tell you one of the best breakup stories about mutual breakups that I've ever heard. So, believe it or not, but there are these things called divorce parties. So essentially, the perception or the conception of the idea revolves around the fact that you're going to have a party celebrating your divorce from your partner. And the party is going to symbolize you, both your partner and you, going out into new paths of your life or something like that. So anyways, in 2011, Jack White and Karen Elson decide to have a divorce party. I mean, this became such a big story that their publicists went to Rolling Stone to post an article about how the couple remains on good terms and how they're having this divorce party and how it's a great way to handle a breakup. And in theory, it's a great way to handle the breakup. So in 2011, they have this divorce party. They go their separate ways. But was the breakup truly mutual? Well, 2 years later, in 2013, Karen decides to take out a restraining order against her ex-husband, Jack. Not so mutual. Again, my sentiment here is not to say that mutual breakups are impossible or they can't happen. It's just that in my experience, from everything that I've seen, read, researched, and studied, they're highly unlikely. And what's really interesting is usually the couple can begin the breakup as being mutual, but it can quickly evolve into more selfish type behavior as time goes on. Here, I'll explain that a little bit for you. So you go through a breakup with your ex and you believe that it's mutual, but somewhere down the road, maybe a month or two later, you decide, you know what, I made a mistake. I need to get back with them. Now it's not so mutual anymore because you changed your mind. So my point is that a lot of times people who say that they have mutual breakups haven't really let enough time go by for their emotions to settle and truly make the decision. So if you had a mutual breakup, if you are one of those very few rare people where you're extremely mature and your ex is extremely mature, which we all know in dealing with exes, they aren't very mature, what does the strategy for getting them back look like? What really changes? Well, to be honest with you, I don't really think much changes. You're still going to want to do a no contact rule. You're still going to want to implement a value chain or a value ladder, obtain the ungettable mindset, kill it at texting, make sure you're doing the dates the correct way. The general strategy doesn't really change. Now, I know I'm kind of buzzing through all of these really complex ideas and tactics and techniques. So if you're a little confused and you want me to explain those a little bit better, my best recommendation for you is just to hop over to our website, www.exboyfriendrecovery.com, where I've literally posted hundreds of articles about each one of these little strategies and how you're supposed to do them. Now, with that being said, when you're dealing with mutual breakups, there's not really much of a change in the techniques or strategies that we teach, but there is one little final twist. One thing that we have noticed in those rare occasions where a breakup was truly mutual is that you and your ex are probably going to grieve on the same wavelength. And this is interesting. There are only really 3 types of breakups that can occur. You break up with your ex breaks up with you, or you agree to break up with each other mutually. And what's interesting is the grieving process for each one of these breakups is a little different. For example, if you broke up with your ex is much more likely to grieve than you are at first. If your ex breaks up with you, you're much more likely to grieve than your ex is at first. But if you both break up with each other, you almost grieve at the same wavelength. I will often talk to my clients about this concept of being on the same wavelength with their ex. And a lot of times, one of the reasons breakups can occur is because you're not on the same wavelength with your ex. A great example of this is if you are trying to get your ex to show you rings at a ring store for marriage and he's not wanting to do it, you have a disconnect. You're not on the same wavelength. So with truly mutual breakups, a lot of time you can actually use sort of the gut feeling technique or strategy. The sort of, well, if I'm feeling this way, that means my ex is probably feeling this way too. And what's interesting is we've noticed in those rare cases that kind of occurs. You grieve and your ex grieves, and you're pretty much close to each other in how you grieve. Both of you get angry at each other at the same time. Both of you get sad at the same time. Now, maybe there's a little bit of a lag for one party because each person is unique and has their own unique personality and ways to grieve, but generally speaking, you'll be on the same wavelength. And that's something that you can use, especially when you're trying to get them back. Hey there, thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. Hopefully you got some clarity on whether or not your breakup was mutual, or it started off as kind of mutual and evolved into kind of like not mutual, if that makes any sense. Anyways, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Every subscriber helps. Like, comment, do whatever you do on YouTube, but do it on our videos. And again, if you haven't taken our Ex Recovery Chances quiz that I talked about at the beginning of this YouTube video, probably a good idea. All you gotta do is just simply look in the description link below this YouTube video and click on it. I'll see you next time.